Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello everybody at home and welcome to Houselights, House of Emmerich, Roland Emmerich, and tonight we're talking about 1998's Godzilla. And this is the end of our Roland Emmerich house, and it has been quite the journey. Everybody's looking at me. Did we actually decide we were going to do Patriot?
Yep, we put it on the list.
But we could also leave it as a surprise at the end. You could open like that, and then at the end we're like, you know what? Let's not go out on a down note.
It is the end of the 90s. Yeah, you could just say it's as we wrap up the 90s with 1998's Godzilla.
Okay,
all right, I'll do that. Godzillas since then.
Yeah, but yeah. Well, I'll say like wrap up the 90s, and then like somehow somebody bring up the Patriot, like John, bring up the Patriot or something like that, and then I'll say, you know what? We need to watch that. We're going to extend this.
Okay.
Yeah. Third time.
It's the charm.
Hello, everybody at home, and welcome to Houselights, House of Emmerich, Roland Emmerich, and we are rounding out the 90s of Emmerich with Godzilla from 1998. This was written by his usual producing and writing partner, Dean Devlin, himself, and also Ted Elliott, and it is starring Matthew Broderick, Jean Reno, and Maria Petillo, however you want to pronounce it, and this really has been a journey through the 90s of Emmerich. We've had ups, we've had downs, a lot of downs, maybe some spirals, but some fun times, and sharing in those fun times, as they do every single week, is Darren Moser and John Mills. John, I want to know right off the bat, when did you see this movie? Did you buy into the hype? Did size really matter when you went to the theater and saw this?
First and foremost, I want to be clear that I've hated that tagline since it came out. That was such an eye-rolling tagline where I was like, okay, guys, all right. I was not particularly stoked for Godzilla, but it was just like the campaign for Independence Day. We were all going to go see it, and we were all going to go. We were all going to see it. Independence Day was a huge hit. It was a water cooler movie. Of course, everybody bought into it at different degrees. You were either going because you're like, okay, let's see what this is, or there were people that were like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so cool. I remember a couple of clips that were in the trailers where everybody was like, oh, that's cool. I don't remember whether it was in a teaser. I think it was in a teaser of Hank Azaria almost getting smushed and then having that laugh. And it was like, I mean, Simpsons fans like myself were like, hey, Hank Azaria's in it. That's awesome. But, it was intriguing. Yeah, everybody wanted to see this movie at first.
At first, the second week, 59% downward spiral showed that not everybody wanted to. But, we can't act like this was a flop because it quadrupled its budget. I mean, it went under expectation, like it didn't meet expectations, I should say, but it still made money. But critically, it was panned a crazy amount.
And I think it didn't do too well in the States, though. Like, this is one where it really, like, maybe globally, you can look back and you can say, oh, this did well with its budget. But I know in the States, I think it didn't even make its money back in the States, or it was really close.
It aimed for 140 domestically, and it made 134.
Yeah, and it cost like 130 to make. So in the 90s, before, global box office was considered a metric.
Yes. Money is still green, wherever it comes in.
Money is still green, but there's still, like, especially at the time, that was a huge miss at the time. Like, massive miss.
Yes. But when you count in all the dollars, is what I'm saying.
I'm just saying there's a reason that this movie had a certain amount of stink on it in Hollywood for a while.
Oh, it definitely did. And the thing is in 1997 leading into 98, the hype machine was unparalleled. Like, this was, I think some Sony exec was saying this is going to be the year of Godzilla. And that actually made it into their marketing material. I mean, this is something that you study in school, the marketing that happened for Godzilla. And I really want to talk about that. Darren, do you remember the marketing push for Godzilla in 98, late 97 and 98?
I do a little bit. I do remember that I did see it in theaters. I always liked the color of the marketing, the greens and the oranges, like either the giant eye or the giant foot, that's in Manhattan. I always felt that it did a very good sense of marketing. Whether that paid off in the movie, that we'll get to that. I'm trying to remember if they did any sort of like crazy stunt, like a giant. I might be remembering that for another movie, but like a giant something squishing things in the middle of a town square. I feel like that was not in 98, but
I don't remember that. But one thing that was really big at the time, I should say for them, like this was Emmerich and Devlin's idea, is that they made their company partners sign a contract that they were not going to display Godzilla, the image of Godzilla in any of the marketing materials until the movie came out.
Yes, I remember
keep
that.
it as like a hype build, which is not a bad idea.
That's the thing though. It's kind of interesting when you look at it because it added to the mystery of it. And from a marketing perspective, like the marketing managers, I think her name was Dana Pleasant or Precious, something like that. I think her name was Dana Precious. She was a VP of the marketing team. And it was her idea to say, like, okay, if we can't show the monster, what we're going to do is we're going to take out bus ads and we're going to have ads that say, like, his foot is as wide as this bus. And they're going to be like huge billboards on skyscrapers where it's like, he's 2 times taller than this building. And so you would see that all over urban areas and like that kind of, so it added to the mystique and the interest of it. But the thing is, where that backfired was in merchandising.
Yep.
Where after the movie came out, that's the thing, is that like they couldn't unveil the merchandising until after the movie came out. So all that hype, all that buildup, you couldn't have kids buying merchandise and buying toys and everything like that because the movie came out and the hype was over because word of mouth kind of killed the interest.
Yes,
and so it's a really fascinating marketing perspective. And John, I want to know your opinion. Do you think this was the beginning of marketing innovation or kind of the beginning of the end when it comes to marketing a movie and integration, synergy, and everything like that?
No, I think this was another piece of the Emmerich Devlin, history, pointing the way for how it was going to go. The saturation, the toy angle is really interesting because I think you see later that they refuse to do that. That basically the toys are on the shelves right away, and they're not going to be coy about it until Baby Yoda with The Mandalorian.
That's true.
Which was a huge gamble and paid off that time. Like, I think what they were going for was what we got with Baby Yoda, which was the reveal was going to happen, and all of us, no matter our age, were going to go out and say, I got to get me a Godzilla toy. That's going to be so cool. And they anticipated that rush for it, and instead they didn't because nobody loved Godzilla. And I mean, honestly, I think that they figured it out. They knew that they could have done it. The problem is that the product wasn't strong enough. The marketing team did their job, and they did it really well, and they did it really smart, and they did innovate. The problem was that the product could not support their efforts. You can market the living hell out of a new restaurant chain or a hotel or a car or anything like that. But once it hits the market, if your marketing got a whole bunch of people in the door, like you said, nowadays we take it for granted that there's going to be a 60 to 73% drop off between weekend 1 and weekend 2 because it's so front loaded, because every multiplex with 20 screens is playing the new movie on 18 of them. So you're counting on getting it all in that first weekend. But with this, the drop off was still a little bit steep. And I think for the time it was very marked. And that's why The marketing did its job, but it couldn't sustain. Like, you can't market something people don't like. Like, at a certain point, people will stop. New Coke happens, right? And it's one of those things where I think honestly, I think the marketing team probably got thrown under the bus and deserved more praise for what they did, considering the fact that what they were marketing was one of the biggest hunks of junk of the 1990s. Oh, spoilers for my later review.
Well, I think one way to look at it as well is, so this came out May 20th of 1998. The DVD and VHS came out in the beginning of November, which for the time, for late 90s, like, that's pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Like it got faster and faster as the years went by, but I still remember late 90s, like, there was still a bit of a span because you wanted to get the money in the theaters as long as possible. And then you'd go to cable and other things before dropping on home video. So that feels fast for what I remember in that decade. And I mean, I was trying to look when the cartoon came about, because that also takes time to produce. You want to hopefully capitalize on whatever marketing you've done. But I think you really just summarized it, John. You can market something to the hilt, and at the end of the day, if the product doesn't support it, it's gonna bubble out and fizzle out. And that's kind of what happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is. I'm really glad that you put it that way, John, because Roland Emmerich he first denied that the movie did poorly, saying like, oh, well, we're making money internationally, the critics are too harsh on it. And then once we got some distance from it, from the release date and the critics panning it and everything like that, he started blaming the marketing. Mm-hmm. He started saying they overhyped it. He hated that tagline, saying that like there was too much, not enough to live up to. And it was just, it was kind of a bad look. And then like even Dean Devlin, he started saying like people were criticizing the plot or lack thereof. And he kind of had like a quippy remark saying like, oh, what, like the originals had that much plot?
Oh, that's always such a bad look. I hate it when somebody tries to defend something that's a big old wet fart of a product or a movie, and they're just like, oh yeah, well this other thing wasn't great. It's like, that's not the defense that you think it is. It's really not like this big shield that you can use. And on top of that, I think that the worst part of it for me is that I will come across and say it, like Independence Day, we all, had a time with all of that sort of stuff. But in all honesty, if you're looking at Roland Emmerich of the 1990s, it's a rough go, guys. It's kind of tough. I mean, especially in light of Godzilla. I think that what you have here is you have a big hit with Independence Day. It's still puzzling to me why we didn't get Independence Day 2, The Revenge, right after Independence Day. I mean, that's the old Hollywood play, is to say, oh, we need a sequel and we need it fast. Here,
let's see, Aliens in the Big City. That's where we got to go next. Oh, wait, we did that already. We destroyed the cities.
But I mean, the thing is, that's why we got Matrix 2 and 3 as quick as we did, is because it was like, oh, okay, guys, we got to, this is a huge hit. We got to do this now. And I think that is the most puzzling thing, because we always talk about the blank check movie. I don't understand why, I mean,
it doesn't sound like this was his blank check movie. Like, he didn't really want to do it,
which makes it even more puzzling.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you come out of Independence Day and just say, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to and take as long as I want to? I mean, he had every right to James Cameron it up and make his big old dream project.
This kind of feels like one more round of, hey, you owe us one more film and then we give you your blank check. Maybe. I don't know. I'm speculating. In interviews, Devlin has said his two big flaws in this movie, I like how we're being super positive, but his two big flaws were not committing to whether Godzilla was a hero or a villain and keeping it just like an animal that's surviving. And yeah, I felt that. It was very like, how am I supposed to feel about this character? Am I supposed to feel sad that he dies? Am I supposed to feel happy that he survives through so long? And the second one was that they didn't really reveal the the gist of the characters, the humans, until like the middle of the movie. So you've already kind of made up your mind whether or not you like these characters or not by the time they're actually telling you anything of substance.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, those are two major problems with this movie.
I think that the Godzilla as a force of nature thing makes perfect sense. And I think that's a pretty consistent thing about Godzilla. Like that's sort of like in the DNA of this particular monster series is Godzilla is a byproduct of people messing with things that maybe they shouldn't. And, you know, it's a classic sort of like 1950s vibe of like, oh, atomic energy and everything. But what hath God wrought? We are all doomed now because of our hubris and thinking that we can control the universe. And Godzilla is sort of nature's revenge for us being a bunch of douches about everything. But like, it would be interesting. I mean, I think that the big problem, and I think you have a point there, Darren, is like, oh, he's just a force of nature. He's just this way. And it's an animal trying to survive and procreate. Okay. But then at the end, it pulls the rug out from underneath you and very definitely slaps you in the face with, aren't you sad Godzilla's dead? And I still remember the first time I saw it, I was like, you can't do that. Like at the last second, it's like, and aren't you sad now? I'm like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be sad. What are you doing to me right here? That sort of thing.
I was just talking to a friend of mine about that. I was just talking about how like what we had no sympathy for this character, even though it was a monster. But yet at the very end, you're sitting there and you're like, what am I supposed to feel right now? How am I supposed to feel? And it's so utterly confusing and it's disconnecting. And honestly, there's a few times when you feel that way with almost every character where you're like, okay, so you have the wannabe reporter who steals top secret government files and screws over her former boyfriend and sweetheart. And then we're all just supposed to go, oh, people make mistakes. I did it for my career. And then you have the French guy. And you're like, you're not quite, I'm not saying he was a villain, but you're not quite you don't understand his motivations. And so you're not quite sure where to go with him or what to feel or what to do. And so he's just kind of there to advance the plot and be mysterious at this. I don't know. I'm not articulating it very well, but there were so many moments. There was no characters where I'm just like, yeah, this is my guy. This is my girl. Like yeah.
It's okay if you don't articulate it very well because neither did they, Tristan. It's okay. This movie is sort of that's its hallmark up to and including like Hank Azaria is like, I guess he's comic relief. That seems to be the memo that Azaria was given, but his character, I'm like, what is the point? What like there are too many characters actually in this movie. I think way too much character bloat.
Well, and you know, let's focus on Matthew Broderick then. Let's pick one character supposed to be the lead, and I was sharing before, like he's just very meh. Like he doesn't get really mad or really sad or really upset. It's just kind of that almost Ferris Bueller type of delivery across the entire thing. And I kept picturing like, oh my gosh, what would this look like if you just had like a different actor there who was like really upset? It made me think of the scene where they're feeding it. And they get all the fish together and he has his encounter, his like up close encounter. And there's that moment right before the military starts shooting, like we all know they're going to. And once they start shooting, he kind of doesn't do anything. Like that should have been the moment of like, stop. Like he's just an animal. You booby trapped the watering hole. You know how low that is to camp out at the watering hole and shoot the endangered animal. But no, we didn't get anything like that. It was, I never knew if I was supposed to want Godzilla dead or not because the main character didn't know either. Yeah, I kept thinking of Jeff Goldblum, and while he gives some speeches in Independence Day, I just feel like if he was delivering some of these lines and some of these moments, I would feel like, oh, you're mad about this, or oh, you're really upset that, you know, your ex-girlfriend screwed you over. And I could just picture his lines, even the same lines. Just in
Oh,
the delivery.
you're so right.
Yeah.
Especially with his ex-girlfriend screwing him over. I can absolutely see Goldblum just lose it.
Yeah.
And with righteous indignation. And I think it's really funny that you bring up Goldblum. Obviously, you bring up Goldblum because of the previous movie that we
just
about
saw him, yeah,
with
fresh in my
Independence
mind.
Day. But also, I mean, this movie was coming after Jurassic Park 2, starring Jeff Goldblum, and it had a very snarky trailer. The first trailer cost It cost $600,000. Didn't have any movie footage in it. It was a teacher taking his class to a museum to see a Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton, and then Godzilla just puts his foot through the ceiling of the museum and squashes the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And you're like, oh, that's not subtle at all. What they're
meant to
what
be
they're
like,
talking
we're
about.
gonna take Jurassic Park's lunch and eat it, basically.
Which they didn't do. And then actually, John, you'll like this, is that I don't know if this was a fan poster or if the marketing team actually did this for the Phantom Menace, but they put out a poster that said plot, the size of your plot does matter, or something like that.
Oh, it feels like a fan poster.
That
I'm just gonna
definitely
say,
feels like a fan poster. That's not disciplined enough for Howard Rothman in 1990s Lucasfilm, in all honesty.
Yeah,
he was
that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is at its core, Darren, is that Broderick lacks the charisma that you need in this role. Is it Broderick's fault? No. I know I say this ad nauseum. It was the director's job to tell him what to do. An actor will do what the director tells him he needs him to do, right? We don't expect everybody to be Daniel Day-Lewis, where, I have to play a survivalist. And so he goes off the grid for 6 years and learns how to skin a bear and turn it into a hang glider or something like that. Like, Matthew Broderick showed up and he did what was asked, which was apparently, just say the line. And the thing that makes me feel bad is I think that it's very obvious that Azaria sees this as a huge break. He's been toiling on The Simpsons for years by this point. The Birdcage was shortly before this, wasn't it? And that was sort of was that before? Yeah, that was shortly before this. His star is on the rise. This is the big break. This is, in all honesty, and I use this example all the time, this is Chris O'Donnell agreeing to be Robin. You think it's going to be the best move of your career. This is going to be the greatest thing ever. And in no way will it hang like an albatross around your neck for the rest of your life. Until years later, you can finally get things back on track because people stop thinking of you as that guy in that movie I don't like. And I think that, Broderick really is just obviously struggling in this. And I made jokes to Tristan and, about Broderick running. Like, if I'm so disconnected with the movie that I notice that his run, I'm like, I would have done a couple more takes and been like, well, that's not quite how a grown person runs, Matthew. Maybe we'll move our arms a little bit differently. Maybe pretend so, like, dress up somebody in a big scary costume and actually chase Matthew Broderick through the set. Have him run like there's something actually after him. And I know that's a really weird thing to quibble with, but that's how disconnected I become with this movie, is when they start running around. I'm like, what? Has he ever run before in his life for any reason?
We saw him run through all the backyards.
I know, all the backyards and the trampoline, so we know he can do it. But
that's right.
Apparently this was years and years and years and years and years later, when Matthew Broderick was in an interview and he was talking about Godzilla. He says, he's like, yeah, I really like the movie. I think it's a lot of fun and I liked doing it. Could it have been better if they cast somebody else? Probably. And he was just like super humble about it. And it was kind of refreshing to hear that.
That's actually kind of a good way to take it. Like, it's not your best work, but if you had a good time, talk about the positives. Don't smash on it. That's totally fine.
Now, in contrast, Hank Azaria was much more in line with what John was talking about. In 2018, I'm reading a quote here. In 2018, Azaria expressed his disappointment with working on Godzilla, citing its failure to boost his career profile as intended, and noting that he fell sick several times while shooting in rainy exteriors for 5 months. He went on to declare that Godzilla became the poster child for everything wrong with Hollywood in terms of budget and marketing, adding that the advertisements looked better than the film itself.
He's not wrong.
I don't know what else can be said. I mean, like next up on Houselights, I don't know.
But see, this is something that I always struggle with. I would prefer, in all honesty, an actor to take the Matthew Broderick line and say, you know what, I had a good time. They paid me. I dried my eyes with giant stacks of cash that they, delivered to my house. Somehow I coped. And I don't like somebody coming back and saying, oh yeah, it's I want somebody to say, be the one who is humble enough, like you said, Tristan, to be like, it could have been better. I'll take whatever blame you want to throw at me. Don't blame those guys. Like that I think is the right position to take. I don't care how many years have passed. And in all honesty, that quote really sounds like Azaria was more upset with the fact that it didn't serve his purposes like he intended. And it's like, that's just a little bit of sour grapes, because as much as I'm making fun of it, a minute ago, it is one of those things where it's like, you never know what's going to hit and what isn't. And you never know a whole bunch of different things. I mean, I think what's interesting is I don't remember, because Godzilla in 98, it is before
Mystery Men. He did the following year.
Yeah.
I'm looking. Well, and that's what I'm trying to think of is like, we've all seen those stories of, oh, I cast so-and-so in this movie and they're great in it. And they're like, the reason I thought of them is I saw them in this B movie trash 3 years earlier and I liked their performance. Mm-hmm. That you hear that story all the time. So I don't know, maybe someone who is deciding, they're like, oh, well, Hank Azaria, he was going for it. Like his guy was out there running. That's a person that I can mold into the Blue Raja for Mystery Men, or, I don't know, something else. While we may not be able to see the direct connection, it's not like it goes into the void.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what's interesting is Godzilla, in a sense, though, escaped what really could have happened to it by being just a little bit too early for message boards to really be on fire. I do. I think if Godzilla comes out a year or two later, the savagery would know no bounds. Like the big breaking point was 99 Phantom Menace. Obviously, that lit the fan base. People think reactions to stuff now are bad. Trust me, it was awful back then too. Like the early adopters of like the early trolls and posters and everything. That is not to excuse anybody today, et cetera, usual disclaimers and everything like that. But I think in a sense, the people who were in Godzilla were lucky that they weren't ready to set them on fire, metaphorically speaking, quite yet. I think in a slightly different environment, Hank Azaria's life is a lot more difficult, for a couple of years afterward. Although maybe not even Azaria. I think Broderick's life people would have come after him pretty hard. And in a way that makes Godzilla feel like a bygone piece of a bygone time, where it's like, oh, back when we could just hate a movie, not go to it afterward and move on, as opposed to spend decades talking about how we didn't like a movie.
Right.
So sorry. That's
not to be confused with what we're doing right now, because we're not spending decades talking about it.
Correct.
We're talking about it decades later. It's
that's
two very different things, folks.
Very, very different
Very
things.
different
Very
things.
different things, yes.
Like, I'm not starting a Twitter handle or a YouTube channel devoted to how much I hate Godzilla.
Lots of red arrows in those screenshots, too.
Right.
Gotta have lots of red arrows.
Things you might not have noticed. The ending explained. When the egg cracks, it means that there might be another one.
Well, and, like you were saying in the marketing, not showing Godzilla, I was trying to think of the beginning of the movie where they also aren't showing him on purpose to build the tension. You have the trawler scene where they're getting dragged under. You have even the fishermen at the very end. You have the footprints. It's been a long time since I watched this movie. Probably maybe 2000, 2001 was probably the last time I physically watched it. I'm not saying that I remembered everything, but it was so predictable. The dialogue, like, there's your sample, and he's like, where is it? I don't see it. And I'm like, dude, like I could have written that. It was like a lot of the dialogue was very predictable, very easy to tell. And gosh, it's hard for me to fairly judge this movie because we live in a post-Pacific Rim world where Pacific Rim just like ate this movie's lunch and did every single thing this movie tried to do a million times better. You want to talk about a force of nature. Talk about a kaiju that's just recklessly destroying the eastern seaboard. That's probably 8 times larger than this mini Godzilla. Just the stakes that are involved, the who's on good, who's on bad, how, the clock. I mean, I would love talking about that movie for another hour, but none of that we got in 1990. Well, the world wasn't ready.
Well, you mentioned the design of the kaiju in Pacific Rim, also a very affectionate favorite of mine as well. Love dragging my wife to go see that in the theater and being like, yeah, wasn't that great?
I love Pacific Rim.
What did you guys think of the design of Godzilla?
Small. The only good thing about the size is I could understand him disappearing and hiding. Like any of the other Godzillas we've seen, like which are the size of a city block, I could never buy that he disappeared into the city. Even this, it's like, oh, he's down in the sewers. I'm like, what mammoth sewers are you talking about? But I don't know. It's very lizard. It's skinny Hollywood Godzilla. It's not my favorite design. I'm not a Godzilla aficionado.
Skinny Godzilla, Hollywood Godzilla. I like that. That's the Ozempic Godzilla.
Well, you know what? I don't think it's even so much the skinniness is like he's too human. I
liked it. I think that was the one thing I did like. I like that he was because I never was. I'm not a Godzilla fan. I've never been a Godzilla fan, and that's probably why I like that design. Is because I feel like one of the reasons why they didn't go all out in the marketing showing him is that Devlin and Emmerich knew that like hardcore fans of the original films would not accept that design, and he was right, and so he had to wait until opening day. I liked it. I liked that it was kind of like Raptor-like, but I liked that it was Raptor-like until it became a Jurassic Park movie in the third act.
I didn't take Godzilla as Raptor-like. Godzilla literally looked like early mocap to me in terms of the way he moved. Godzilla didn't move like an animal so much as yes, I know everybody. Well, the original Godzilla was a person in a rubber suit. No kidding. Oh gosh. But I'm saying like you have your opportunity here. You're at that breaking point of fully committing to your giant CG dinosaur thing. Make it move more like a non-human creature. And I think that's probably why the design gets under my skin with how human the legs and the arms look. It looks like a human crouching as opposed to a lizard or a raptor, like you're saying. Like it just doesn't move the right way. And I think that is probably what makes the design not work for me. I think I would have probably liked them to tweak the design to make it more natural, more dinosaur-like even, I guess. I also didn't really care for the jawline. The jawline was just odd to me. It wasn't
kind of crocodile-ish with like a really, really long mouth.
but it looked like he had a Count Dooku Clone Wars beard.
I read that
sharp beard.
That's so funny because I really liked the jaw. Like that was one of my favorite things about it. And I read that the designer was a fan of Shere Khan from The Jungle Book. And that's where he got his inspiration from.
Look, I'm just saying it just doesn't work for me. It just doesn't. I don't know. It's just there are too many things that come together. I think conceptually, I get what he went for. And it's like as a stationary picture, it works. But as a moving creature, just doesn't play well for me.
So, Darren, you're kind of our music aficionado. You're the one who notices the music the most.
Sure. Notice or don't notice.
What do you think about this one? I mean, like, obviously Stargate was a hit. Independence Day was fun when it comes to music. What did you think of Arnold's performance in this one?
Okay, so to confirm, this is the same musical produced by is those other two movies. Nothing really stood out to me. It, like, honestly, since we watched Independence Day last week, I've been playing that main fanfare that like kicks on when you start the credits continuously in my head. Like, I love that track. Like, it's the where where the crop duster is going right, or not the crop, he's in a jet plane. I knew that. It's right where the finale of the movie is taking place, and that, like, here I come, Mr. President, I'm packing, and like the fanfare is building, and you care about the ending. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing really stuck out as, oh, there's mystery here, or oh, there's tension here, or oh, there's an unstoppable force, or even, oh, there's love between these two characters. Nothing. There was, I mean, there was music and it accentuated things, but maybe there was nothing to build on, and maybe that's why it kind of just dried out. Like, I can't think of a love theme or even a military. Give us some little bit of bugle and some snare drum when the military rolls up. Everybody does it. Just do that, and you would have at least a little bit of like patriotism, attacking the monster. I didn't really get anything from it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. John, do you have anything to add to that?
Can't recall a single thing from the score.
Yeah, neither can I. Man, I'm trying really hard here, folks. I'm trying.
It's okay. It's okay. You know what? We can accept that even the supposedly comedic, shoehorned, nagging wife plotline that they put in for Hank Azaria's character, we can agree that that's even terrible. So even down in the minutia of the movie, I will say that the one area where I will give it any sort of credit is I will give Azaria credit, because he is going as hard as he can to make an impression here. And he's doing a caricature, but at least he's trying to make it like a memorable caricature. And I think Jean Reno's hamming it up too. At some point in the movie, I think about the halfway point, it's almost as if Jean Reno suddenly reread the script and was like, oh, okay. Oh, I know how to do this one. And so it's like they're really, they're like threat level clown in terms of like how hard they go into, like, for instance, with the imitating Elvis's accent scene. I get a kick out of it even now. There's like Elvis movies, and it's like, okay, that's cute, so I'll give them credit for that. Even though I can't recall the music, I think that the opening credits, like that sort of montage of showing the atomic tests and the lizards and the eggs, and I'm like, I remember seeing it for the first time. I think this might only be the second time I've ever seen this, honestly. Looking at it and being like, that's a pretty intriguing opening. Yeah, okay, I like that. Like that's got that vibey sort of like 1950s sci-fi feel of like, oh, atomic testing. What is it doing? Ooh, you're showing me all of these lizards were exposed. Could this be Godzilla's origin story? And then the movie happens, and I lose all interest. So
it's interesting because I can't remember who they pitched the movie to first. It might have been Columbia. I can't remember. It doesn't matter who, but the first production studio that they pitched it to, they said, no, we're going to pass because there's a huge possibility of camp. I feel like this movie would have done better if it went
they leaned into
whole hog into camp. Like if they leaned into it. Like, have the crazy special effects, like, have the crazy action. Why is
there a worm guy leading our attack against the Godzilla monster? I don't know, but he volunteered for the job,
Although, keep in mind, Hollywood would have been, by this point, burned by the camp of where the superhero genre went, with the Phantom and the Shadow and Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, and like, so. If it had leaned into
3 out of the 4 movies of those.
If it had embraced that, it would have been seen as part of a trend. But maybe I think you're right. Maybe it would have gotten it some forgiveness, because it would have felt like, oh, they're doing this on okay, this is fun, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't think you make 300 million domestic fun out of that. That's a
cult classic. That's a cult classic that you make back through DVD sales.
Mm-hmm.
which it did surprisingly well in VHS and DVD sales.
And I could see that, where people were like, I'm not going to go see it in theaters, but I'll rent it and, have some popcorn at home.
I mean, I was one of the broken people in the late 90s that if I missed something in the theater, I wouldn't rent the thing. I would buy it because I didn't want whatever somebody else had done to a videotape or a disc to touch my player. So,
weird, John.
There were what? That's sensitive, expensive equipment.
You can clean the heads with a Q-tip and some alcohol, man. That's all it takes.
Listen, man. But you have to clean them less frequently if everything you get is just pristine out of the package, my brother. Come on.
Clean your heads, folks.
Well,
that's the message of today.
Yes, clean your streaming heads. It's very important to clean the streaming heads. Yes.
You know what? I'm calling this one. I'm going to Lance Reddick territory.
Good.
So I'm going to go first on Lance Reddick. This one was a little hard because as I was watching this, I was like, obviously Lance Reddick would make a better lead. Because I think Broderick, even though I have a soft spot for Broderick, I think he was miscast. I think personally my Lance Reddick pick, for those of you who have never listened to an episode, we like taking the actor Lance Reddick and seeing where we would cast him. It doesn't matter what year it came out. We could use any age of Lance Reddick and see where he could improve the film. Even though I liked Jean Reno's performance, I think he would have made a really great French spy. So that's my pick. Darren, what are you picking for Lance Reddick?
Yeah, I picked Colonel Hicks, which is played by your and mine favorite father of the Shia LaBeouf. No, I'm just kidding. But no, he was played by Kevin Dunn, and who did a decent job. Again, I never felt he was actually angry about the situation. Just kind of.
And then they tried to shoehorn some sort of weird paternal, like pat on the back thing with Sergeant O'Neill. Like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah. So I picked him up, obviously, just seeing that. I also recognized the great Glenn Morshower, who is your friend and mine, the agent of agents. We see him everywhere. He was in 24. He was in Transformers.
He's on the Transformers ride at Universal
He's on the ride.
Resort. There you go. You've got to get the Allspark to safety on the one and only ride I've ever been on that uses slow motion. I don't know how it works, but it doesn't.
But yeah, so all that to say, I think, it's like a mid-level role. I mean, it has quite a bit of screen time, but I don't feel like I think it could be elevated by a Lance Reddick take. So that's my vote.
Mr. Mills.
I the thing is, I love that. I think that I had that in my head as well. Both of those and all of the reasoning, I was right there with you guys, and it's tough because I also really struggled with it, but I actually wound up replacing Doug Savant, who played Sergeant O'Neill, with Lance Reddick, because I think that role, Savant's a little lost. I don't think he's being given clear enough direction, but that feels like a Lance Reddick role. The type of on the ground military commander who's listening to the lead, who's trying to make a difference and is trying to find that balance between reason and the orders that he's being given. I think he could have elevated that role, because quite frankly, I think no matter where you put Lance Reddick in this movie, ain't nothing going to save it. And so I would have put him there in that role.
Which is funny because Lance Reddick is in this movie. I think it's one of his earlier accreditation. I think he's Military Grunt 3 in the background of some shot. I couldn't find him, but he is there, but I think we recast him in much better roles.
I honestly had no idea. I really had no idea. That's hilarious. All right. Okay. So here comes the star rating. I mean, I can't think of, we said like out of 99 things that we hated, maybe we said one thing that we liked. And I'm looking at my previous ratings of through Emmerich. And I'm going to go first here. Okay. So I gave Universal Soldier 2 stars, and Universal Soldier has such little redeeming value, if any. like with Godzilla, at least I can say like, oh, at least the action sequences are entertaining somewhat. You know, like at least I'm seeing a monster destroy some buildings. So that is giving it an extra half star over Universal Soldier, but just barely. So I'm going to say 2.5. John, where are you landing on this?
Oh, you're very generous because I consider this worse than Universal Soldier. Universal Soldier at least has Jean-Claude Van Damme trying to act and, you know, all those sorts of things where I'm like, and it has a great opening stunt sequence, which is, you know, I can watch that again. And, you know, it has that nostalgic value for me, but Godzilla barely ekes out a 1 from me. And it ekes out that 1 just because of the aforementioned Azaria and Renault and that opening credit sequence. But the rest of it right down to P. Puff Diddy Daddy abusing the riff from Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. I mean, yeah, 1 star.
Well, and my final thoughts, I was trying to remember, because this Hank, we've talked more about Hank Azaria than probably any other character in this movie, but I'm okay with that. I was trying to remember like what this performance reminded me of, and I finally clicked on it. It's his performance in, I just lost it, America's Sweetheart in 2001. So he plays like
I love that movie.
The boyfriend Hector Gonzalez. That's like this exact, like I would swear it's the same guy, but like dialed up to an 11. Very similar in that vibe.
Don't see that at all. What are you talking about? I don't see that in the least.
All right. Well, if anything,
that's the guy who talks like this.
That's true.
He's
that's
like,
true.
Maybe like, Putty boy.
Then maybe I'll say that them seeing him go for it in this movie cast him in that. I'm going to believe that some casting director was dragged to Godzilla by their, you know, teenage son and discovered the greatness of Hank Azaria. Enough Hank Azaria. I'm going to give it a 2. I knew we were going to dip down a bit from Independence Day. How could you not? It went a little farther down than I was expecting, but I could not remember this movie because it had been decades since I watched it. And yeah, it'll probably be a couple more until I watch it again.
Well, I'll go so far as to say I'll never watch this movie again in my life. I'm done. This is it.
Well, why? While we were talking about this, like, it makes me so sad that this is where we're ending, because, like, as we were talking about music and in shot selection and acting, Emmerich is ending in the 90s on such a horrible note. And like even Darren, you were talking about like, throw me a patriotic theme or something like that. Like, if you want a patriotic theme, like, there's one place that you can go, and that's The Patriot. And I wish that, like, even though he was making this in 99, it wasn't released until 2000. And so I wish that movie was wrapping this one up.
I mean, I look at it as it's still in the same millennium, because technically 2001 is the beginning of the millennium.
That's true. So
we're staying
technically, technically the Patriot's in the same decade. So I'd say, I mean, I haven't watched The Patriot in years. I would love to revisit it because I don't have a fond memory of it, but I know that others do, and I feel like I'm overdue for giving it a fair shake. Like,
Darren,
give it another chance to win my heart.
Darren, have you seen it?
I have, but probably only when it came out. I haven't seen it since, so I don't remember it.
Oh, geez, this is a movie. This is a Riddell family favorite. Like, this is one I love to rewatch. Like, this isn't just a movie that I liked. This is one where I like pop it in and go like, yeah, like, it's time to watch The Patriot. Okay, well, screw it. Let's do that. Okay, so we're not ending. We're giving Emmerich one last shot to win us over.
Emmerich 90s +1.
+1. I see what you did there. All right, so the House of Emmerich gets a stay of execution for one more week. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Make sure to tune in next week as we talk about The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson, and came out in 2000. And just as a reminder, we are asking everyone who listens to our show and likes our show to go to Apple Podcasts and give us a rating. If you could give us a written review, that'd be super nice, because it helps us get noticed. And tell your friends, tell your family. And please tune in next week for more Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.